Every so often, the best deals are the ones you don't make. After a decade of negotiations, Kosovo is no closer to delivering its independence. Frustrations are mounting, with Kosovans having nothing to show for. Now, an alternative option is taking shape. Instead of independence, Kosovo is exploring ways to merge with Albania and through it gain access to the outside world. Doing so would allow Kosovo to normalize its international status without approval from Serbia. Kosovo's Prime Minister says that he would accept the results of a unification referendum, while Albania's Prime Minister says that a common Albanian state is inevitable and unquestionable. Even if it's all just electoral talk, the mere notion of unification could result in political brinkmanship between Albania, Serbia, and Kosovo. The Balkans is a place still haunted by its past disruptions, a place that produces more history than it can consume. I'm your host Shirvan, and welcome to Caspian Report. Today's video is sponsored by Established Titles, a project that helps to preserve the charming woodlands of Scotland while raising funds to support global forestation efforts. Established Titles supports international charities like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future. So, with every order, a tree is planted. The neat thing about Established Titles is that the project is based on a private estate in Ardely, Aberdeenshire, Scotland, where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies. That means by buying as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land, you can officially call yourself a lord or a lady. You get an official certificate with a crest proving your title and a unique plot number with which you can see the location of your land. It's a wonderful combination between history and environment and makes the perfect last-minute gift for your loved ones. Go to establishedtitles.com/CaspianReport and use the promo code CaspianReport at checkout for an additional 10% discount on top of their ongoing holiday sale. Landlocked, surrounded by mountains, and partially recognized, Kosovo is home to an ethnic Albanian majority. In 2008, with the backing of the West, Kosovo unilaterally declared independence from Serbia. In the time since, Kosovo has been recognized by more than 100 members of the United Nations, including the United States and much of the European Union. However, Serbia does not recognize Kosovo as a sovereign state, a position that is shared by Russia and China. Still more complicated, Serbia sees Kosovo as the birthplace of the Serbian identity, which makes political discussions as sensitive as a field of landmines. Since 2011, Brussels has sponsored talks to normalize relations between Belgrade and Pristina. Progress has been slow, with plenty of sticking points. Serbia rejects to formally cede Kosovo or recognize its independence, while Kosovo opposes any concession on the faith of the ethnic Serb population in its northern territories. European diplomats have tried to entice their Serbian counterparts with the option of EU membership if they cede Kosovo. But the incentive has proven inadequate. The Serbians are not budging. The diplomatic inertia has blocked Washington's geopolitical objective to integrate Serbia and Kosovo into Western institutions such as the EU and NATO. On the other hand, the stalemate has provided an entry point for Russia and China to expand their influence in the Balkans by backing Serbia's position on Kosovo at the United Nations. In 2017, however, there was a breakthrough. The Trump administration held talks between Serbia and Kosovo and brokered an understanding. Kosovo was to relinquish Serb-populated northern Kosovo to Serbia, and in exchange, Serbia would agree to Kosovo's independence while starting the process of joining the EU. There was a brief moment of optimism, a light at the end of the tunnel. However, when the details of the talks surfaced, public backlash derailed the agreement. In Pristina, there is a predominant belief that Serbia is morally obligated to accept Kosovo's unconditional independence following Serbian attempts to ethnically cleanse the area back in 1999. The Kosovan president who negotiated the deal was marginalized and resigned from office. The replacing lawmakers imposed a 100% tariff on Serbian imports, thereby winning political approval while distancing themselves from the previous deal of conceding territories in northern Kosovo. Interestingly though, the final nail in the coffin came from France. In 2019, policymakers in Paris de facto suspended EU enlargement, thus effectively ending Serbia's hope of joining the Union. So at present, there is little reason to resume negotiations. Kosovo has taken territorial concession off the table, while Serbia is blocked from entering the EU. With the collapse of the diplomatic talks, frustrations mounted, particularly in Kosovo. As an unrecognized state, Kosovo has been unable to join international institutions like the UN, the EU, and NATO. And for as long as the stalemate lasts, Kosovo cannot begin to develop politically and economically. Its future will remain uncertain and unpredictable. Now, an alternative roadmap is taking shape. Since Kosovo is no closer to delivering its independence, it is exploring ways to unify with Albania. Merging with Albania would consolidate Kosovo's secession from Serbia while giving it access to the outside world. With Albanian passports, Kosovans could travel abroad, trade internationally, and take part in global events. Essentially, by unifying with Albania, Kosovo could normalize its international status without approval from Serbia. It could thereby end its state of limbo. It's pretty clever when you think about it, but it's not a new idea. The unification of Albania and Kosovo is a widely discussed topic that enjoys support among Albanians and Kosovans. Both sides see themselves as part of a single Albanian nation. Opinion polls suggest that both populations are open to unification. According to a poll from 2019 by the Open Society Foundation, about 75% of Albanians and 64% of Kosovans are in favor of unification. But up until now, there has been little practical integration between Kosovo and Albania due to political priorities. Kosovo has focused on securing its independence, while Albania aimed to join the EU. However, with neither objective going forth, Albania and Kosovo feel cornered and left with no other option but to pursue national unification. As of this writing, Albanians can live and work in Kosovo without residence permits. Likewise, Kosovans can live and study in Albania. The two have recently pledged to integrate their economies through a customs union, and similar plans are in the work to combine their foreign policies. Some officials have even floated the idea of a joint presidency and a joint military. Both sides seem confident that unification is going to happen. However, in the current political climate, unification would be tricky. Serbia rejects Kosovo's unification with Albania as much as it rejects Kosovo's independence. If Albania and Kosovo press ahead with a customs union or a common foreign policy, Serbia would want to disrupt the process. From a legal standpoint, Serbia has plenty of allies. Kosovo, though modest in size, casts a shadow across the globe. What happens there could have ramifications for other fragile states where similar ethnic tensions exist. Russia and China, using their veto power at the United Nations, would oppose redrawing international borders along ethnic lines because it would open the door to irredentist movements all over the world. But it's not just the big players that are anxious. In the immediate periphery, North Macedonia, which has a large Albanian community, would also oppose Albanian-Kosovan unification for fear that its own Albanian minority would want to join the new Albanian state. Meanwhile, Bosnia and Herzegovina would oppose Albanian Kosovo unification because it has the opposite problem, where its ethnic Serb community could push for unification with Serbia. So when one state changes its borders, others will quickly follow. And given that it's the Balkans, the process would go down violently and carelessly. Even so, in Kosovo, unification would necessitate a constitutional reform, which the government would struggle to achieve. Adjusting the Kosovan constitution would require a 2/3 majority in parliament and endorsement from minority groups in the country, which means that the Serb community in northern Kosovo would have veto power. Moreover, disputes could develop between Albania and Kosovo over the type of integration. Would the new Albanian state constitute a federal or unitary state, and would there be a special role for Kosovo? Still more pressing, integrating both territories into one country would require billions of dollars in public spending, which neither Kosovo nor Albania have immediately available. A special tax would have to be designed to support the unification effort. But interestingly, the same poll that measured the public opinion also reveals that support for unification falls to 29% in Albania and 43% in Kosovo if unification includes a tax to finance the process. All these obstacles, be it international objection, constitutional reform, or special taxation, are fault lines that could derail unification even before the process begins. If somehow these obstacles are bypassed, Belgrade could still resort to physical means. As of late, Serbia has been on a shopping spree, buying arms from all kinds of suppliers, including Russian tanks and helicopters, Israeli anti-tank missiles, Turkish drones, Chinese surface-to-air missile systems, and the list goes on. Between 2015 and 2021, Serbia's defense spending jumped by nearly 70%, eclipsing $1.4 billion a year. Serbia currently outspends Albania, Bosnia, Montenegro, Kosovo, and North Macedonia combined. While beefing up its military, Serbia has also gotten a lot more confident in its capabilities. In September 2021, when a dispute erupted with Kosovo over number plates, Serbia flew warplanes close to the border and deployed armored vehicles to intimidate Kosovo. Does this mean the next stop is a full-scale armed conflict? Not quite. Even though Serbia is considerably stronger than Albania, it is also surrounded by a sea of NATO. So while sporadic acts of political brinkmanship will persist, an armed conflict is improbable. So where is all this going? Well, that is a matter of speculation. The ultimate outcome will be grounded by geopolitical realities. Nearly all of Kosovo's population is predominantly Albanian, and the majority wants unification with Albania if it cannot verify its independence. If the two decide to remove all cross-border physical barriers and integrate their road infrastructure, there is little Serbia can do to stop it. Over time, Kosovo's trade would shift towards Albania, considering its access to the sea. That means in the coming years, Kosovo will steadily integrate into Albania's economic and political sphere, but stop short of becoming a single country. Serbia, meanwhile, would be forced to salvage whatever it could from the situation. Belgrade could, for instance, incorporate Serb-populated northern Kosovo, which is only partially integrated into the rest of Kosovo. Clearly, Kosovans would disapprove, but Albanians might come around and see the secession of northern Kosovo as a reasonable price to pay for Kosovo's breakaway from Serbia while avoiding a full-scale conflict. Eventually, the invisible hand of realpolitik will force Albania, Kosovo, and Serbia to bend to the realities on the ground, even if it happens kicking and screaming. And that is what diplomacy is all about. It is the art of the possible, the attainable, and when all else fails, the art of the next best thing. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you like what we do, please consider joining our Patreon platform or YouTube membership program. Doing so allows us to remain independent and self-sustained. Thank you for watching, and Sahol.